2023 Honda HR V, courtesy of Apple Honda in York, PA. For more information on their inventory, please feel free to check out the link in the description box below. So obviously we are in this one today because it has been completely redesigned for the 2023 model year. Also marks the start of the second generation HR-V, so that's pretty exciting as well. And essentially it shares the same basic platform as the Honda Civic. So ultimately in this video, we will be testing out and going over everything about this one, from acceleration to braking, steering feel, ride quality, sound system, exhaust clip, all that fun stuff. So having said all of that, what do you guys say? Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And as always, let's start with pricing. And so as you can imagine, there are a few different trim levels for the 2023 HR-V. First one being the LX, starting at $23,650. Sport, which is the one we are in today, starting at $25,650. Lastly, the EXL, starting at $27,450. By the way, that was all pricing for the front wheel drive configuration. If you wanted to add all-wheel drive, you can do that. Simply add $1,500 then to any of those prices. But regardless of trim level that you go with, the power plant on the HR-V is going to be the same. Powering the little beast is a 2-liter naturally aspirated inline 4-cylinder, putting out 158 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, 138 pound-feet of torque, coming in at 4,200 RPM. Power sent to front wheels or all wheels through a CVT. 0 to 60 time coming in at approximately 9.5 seconds, with MPG numbers coming in at 26 in the city, 32 on the highway for the front wheel drive, 25 in the city, 30 then on the highway for the all-wheel drive, taking regular unleaded fuel. But so then before we do any kind of fun paddle shifter or acceleration test here in our HR-V, I wanted to mention to you guys the drive modes. And so there's a little toggle switch directly behind the shifter that's going to give you normal, econ, and snow, but you also have a sport driving mode that's actually on the shifter. You just simply slide the shifter back one little notch there, and that's going to immediately downshift. So it is holding my RPMs at a much higher level now, giving me more power on demand. So that is pretty cool. But also in addition to that, it also adjusts the throttle response, the steering sensitivity, and climate control settings then as well. Specifically, if you put it in that econ driving mode, maybe when you're going down the highway, it is going to tailor back the climate control, or the AC I should say, a little bit, giving you a little better MPGs there. But now I've got all of that out of the way, what do you guys say? Let's go ahead and find a straightaway. Let's put the HR-V here to the test, and let's see how quickly we can get our new 2023 Honda HR-V here up to speed. All right, you guys, so we do have it in sport driving mode here, so we're gonna have the best acceleration in 3, 2, 1, go. It's fine. It's not that bad. Honestly, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, because in the past I remember the HR-V being incredibly slow, but it's not bad. It'll get the job done. You shouldn't have any issues in marching onto the highway. And quite honestly, because it's a naturally aspirated inline 4-cylinder, you're going to have a heck of a lot of reliability with this power plant as well, so that's always a good thing. But anyways, to go along with that acceleration, as always, braking is equally important. And so up front, you will find 12.3-inch ventilated front discs. In the back, 12.2-inch solid rear discs. As far as that braking feel goes, yeah, it's perfect. It's honestly perfectly fine, so definitely not going to have any issues with bringing the HR-V to a stop. Then touching on suspension and handling, up front you're going to get a McPherson strut front suspension. In the back, independent multi-link rear suspension, front and rear stabilizer bars. As far as ride quality goes, so we're going 2 miles per hour right now. No, honestly, ride quality has been perfectly fine. I mean, you do tend to feel a little bit more of the road in smaller SUVs like this, but for what the vehicle is, it's really not that bad. I personally don't mind the ride quality at all. Steering feel is excellent, 100% on point, leans towards the heavier side of things, at least when you compare it to the other SUVs in its class. A lot of times SUVs compared to the HR-V is going to be kind of a looser steering feel, so less emotion to it, but Honda traditionally has always been known to have a little bit heavier of a steering feel, so a little more playful steering feel instantly points you in the direction that you want to go. So for that reason, I actually do really like the steering feel on the HR-V, so 100% on point there. As far as cabin noise goes, I will say that's one of the first things I noticed. You do tend to hear a little bit more of the road noise, but it's not something that would personally bother me, actually. So touching on visibility, I can see 100% perfectly fine out the back, so definitely not going to have any issues with rear visibility in the HR-V as well. But that pretty much rounds out the performance segment of this review, guys. Let's now go ahead and take a look at the exterior of our brand new 2023 Honda HR V. All right, so here she is, you guys, the new 2023 Honda HR V, finished in platinum white pearl, which by the way is a $395 paint option if you wanted to go that route. But I will say I have always loved Hondas in white. I actually had a taffeta white, I believe the name was, Acura RSX back in the day, which of course is a Honda in Japan. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. Let's go ahead and start with the HR V here, completely redesigned, of course, for 2023, 2.6 inches wider than the previous generation and 8.7 inches longer than the previous generation. So if this thing looked a little larger than the last generation to you, you are correct. It is a little bit bigger of an SUV. But let's go ahead and start up front of this one. One of my favorite parts, LED headlights do come standard for all trim levels across the board, which you do not always get. As you guys probably noticed on the last generation, you did not get that, but you now do on the second generation HR V. So I love that. Automatic feature, of course, coming with that, meaning when it starts to get dark out at night, those headlights will turn on automatically for you there. Automatic high beams also coming standard for all trim levels across the board. I love that, meaning when you have your high beams on at night and it senses a vehicle coming in the opposite direction, it's going to automatically dim those back to low beams. Then when that vehicle is gone, it's automatically going to bump that back up then to high beams. So little convenience feature there for you. LED daytime running lights, of course, coming standard, located just below the headlights right there. Revised front grille, of course, for 2023. Revised everything, I really should say. However, I will say there will be a sport specific front grille for the sport trim level that we have here today. So slightly, just ever so slightly different look for the other trim levels. I wanted to mention that. And you got some matte black accents toward the lower portion of that front bumper as well. But also front air curtains to the sides, helping direct air around the wheel and tire combination. But that pretty much rounds out the front end of the HR V. I actually love the new look, in my personal opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But now let's go ahead and make our way to the side. And so now, since we are around to the side of this one, black window surrounds do come standard. Rear privacy glass coming standard only with the Sport and EXL, meaning you will not get that rear privacy glass with the LX. So wanted to mention that. Taking a look at the side mirrors, power adjustable body colored side mirrors coming with the LX and EXL. Gloss black side mirrors only for the sport trim level that we have today, so I wanted to emphasize that as well. Heated side mirrors with LED integrated turn signals for the Sport and EXL trim levels. Taking a look down at the wheel setup, 17-inch silver painted alloys for the LX, 17-inch machine finished alloys for the EXL, and then 18-inch gloss black alloys, which of course is what you guys are looking at right now for the sport trim level. So pretty much rounds out the side. Another very good looking side profile here. Let's now go ahead and make our way to the back. So but now, since we are around to the back of this one, all the way to the top, you will find a body colored shark fin antenna. Just below that, you will find a gloss black rear spoiler with an LED integrated brake light. Very nice looking there. Rear window wiper, of course. As far as the all-wheel drive badging, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I'll get up a little closer here. It's not actually going to be located on the liftgate itself, but rather right underneath of that rear window wiper. So if you have an all-wheel drive equipped HR-V, that is where you're going to find that badging. So if you're walking on a Honda lot, for example, on a Sunday, and you're wondering if you're looking at an all-wheel drive version, that's where you're going to find it. But anyways, let's now go ahead and make our way to the best part about the back. LED taillights coming standard for all trim levels across the board. Look absolutely amazing. I love the design specifically of those taillights. Like, the whole design for this HR-V looks so much better than the previous generation. Not that that one was bad, but this is just so much better. That's all I'm saying. But sport badging found on that rear tailgate as well. If you go with the sport trim level, of course, you'll find some silver accenting towards the bottom, of course, and to the side there, a single exhaust outlet with a very nice looking bright chrome tip. So having said that, I do believe you guys know what we have to do next. As always, here is that exhaust clip. But now, since we are around to the back of the HR-V, when it comes to opening that rear tailgate, there is a button to unlock it on the key fob, but ultimately it is a manual tailgate for all trim levels. So I'm actually going to just lift up on the tailgate itself, and that's going to open up for me there. Once opened up, cargo capacity comes in at 24.4 cubic feet behind that second row. If that was not enough space, there's a 60-40 split, meaning the rear seats do fold down, bumping that up to 55.1 cubic feet then. Did want to also mention that there is cargo lighting, of course, but it's LED cargo lighting, which I didn't expect to see at this price point. So that's something you typically see on luxury vehicles. So I do love that Honda really put LEDs all the way around on this thing, interior and exterior. So that is a big win for me, at least. But a couple tie-down acres back there, and there is a 12-volt power outlet to my surprise as well. Another thing you don't always get at this price point. And if you were to lift up underneath of that cargo floor, you will find some cargo storage. But then if you're wondering, is there a spare tire? If you lift up underneath of that in-floor storage, you're actually going to find a spare tire as well. So really the best of both worlds there. You got everything in the cargo area. But now let's go ahead and make our way to the rear legroom. That comes in at 37.7 inches. So for reference, I'm an even 6 feet tall. This is how much space I had back there. If the rear passengers look forward, they will find a little bit of storage, but no rear air vents, unfortunately. That is something I wouldn't have minded if Honda put back there. So no charging ports either, no center armrest with cup holders or anything like that. But now let's go ahead and make our way to the front seats. Manually adjustable cloth seating for the LX and the Sport. That is, of course, what you guys are looking at right now. Heated front seats then for the Sport and EXL trims. EXL is also going to add an 8-way power adjustable driver's seat and leather seating as well. But I do like the orange contrast stitching that we have in our Sport trim level. I will say that, and quite honestly, it kind of surprised me. Even though we got manually adjustable cloth seats, that was one of the first things I noticed. These are incredibly comfortable seats, quite honestly. So you shouldn't have any issues with taking this thing on a long road trip or anything like that. I will say that. But then take a look at the steering wheel. It is tilt and telescoping. It is going to be leather wrapped for the Sport and EXL trim level. So definitely no issues there. And actually the bolsters, the 10-2 grips, they're kind of beefy. More beefy than I would expect an SUV to be. So I was a huge fan of that as well. But then taking a look at the startup, I'm going to actually start by showing you guys the key here. It is got your Honda logo on the one side. When you flip it over, lock, unlock the button to unlock the rear tailgate, and that hold button, that is going to be a remote start, which comes standard on the Sport and EXL trims, meaning you can warm up the HRV on super cold days in Pennsylvania here before you actually get inside, which is always a really cool feature. But essentially it is all keyless entry with a push button start. So all I'm going to do here is simply put my foot on the brake and press that bright red engine start button located just by the driver's right knee. And so once started up, the left portion essentially is going to be the digital portion of the gauges. So tachometer is on your left, speedometer is on your right. And having said that, the digital portion, of course, is completely customizable, but the standard setup, you got a large digital readout of your speed front and center all the way to the top. You do have your trip A, trip B, you have how many miles until your next oil change, basically all the basics you could expect on the digital portion of the gauges at least. Then make our way to overall interior quality. If you wanted a power moonroof, you do have to go with the EXL trim level, I'll say that. LED interior lighting, yet again, I wanted to mention that there. Wireless phone charger coming with the EXL, dual zone climate control coming with the EXL, ambient LED lighting coming with the EXL, auto dimming rearview mirror coming with the EXL. Essentially all those extra comforts are going to be with the EXL if you haven't noticed already. I will say, although we don't have dual zone climate control though, we do have automatic climate control, which quite honestly is just about just as good. You can essentially set the temperature. It's going to automatically hit that temperature for you. It's just passenger doesn't get to actually set their own temperature as well. But I do like this honeycomb design that they kind of took off of this Civic, found just above the passenger side glove box, just below the infotainment screen. Always liked that design when it first came out. Again, you got contrast stitching everywhere. Just in front of the shifter, you have large rubberized storage to put your cell phone, of course. You have the USB connection for your Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, also to charge your phone at that. Just in front of the shifter, again, you got your dual cup holders. Behind the shifter, you have a decent amount, actually, of storage within the center armrest. Kind of surprised me there. And actually, one of the coolest parts just behind the shifter, you have a little bit of hidden storage and rubberized storage at that. So maybe if your passenger had a cell phone, they could leave it there if they wanted to. Also, electromechanical parking brake, another USB charging port on both sides, both driver and passenger side there as well, again, for charging your phone. So plenty of USB charging ports in the front at least, which I am a huge fan of. And your heated seat buttons are by the climate control buttons up front there as well. So now let's go ahead and make our way though to the infotainment screen. And so there's going to be a couple different setups for the HRV. A 7-inch color touchscreen display is going to come with the LX and the Sport, but if you were to go with the EXL, you're going to get a larger 9-inch color touchscreen display. But either way, I will say, You still get Bluetooth and audio streaming. You still get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So if you have a smartphone, you therefore got free navigation displayed up on either screen. And you can, of course, adjust your radio information up there as well. And interestingly enough, each trim level is going to come with a different amount of speakers. And so the LX trim level is going to give you 4 speakers and 180 watts. Sport trim level is going to give you 6 speakers and 180 watts. And the EXL is going to give you 8 speakers and 180 watts. So the wattage remains the same, but the speakers increase by 2 each trim level that you go up. So that was kind of interesting. But nonetheless, what do you guys say? Let's go ahead and turn on the radio, see what we got playing today, and let's test out the clarity of this one. Alright, so that was FM radio. I didn't see Sirius XM on this thing quite yet, but having said that, it's okay. It's a standard 6-speaker sound system. It didn't blow me away, but it's what you would expect a 6-speaker sound system to sound like. I'll put it that way. If you wanted a couple extra speakers, again, go with the EXL, but it's okay. It's not the best I've ever heard, of course. But anyways, last thing I wanted to mention to you guys on the infotainment screen is when you do put the Hr V in reverse, you will find a rear view camera coming standard across the board with a couple different views you can select at the bottom left-hand corner there as well, which is always going to lead us into safety. And so front side curtain airbags do come standard. Also driver and passenger knee airbags up front as well. You don't always get that in the competition. In the back, you're going to have latch, aka lower anchors and tethers for children for the rear car seats, rear child door locks, tire pressure monitoring system. Also coming standard on the Hr V will be Honda sensing, and so this will include collision mitigation braking system, road departure mitigation system, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, forward collision warning, lane departure warning, traffic jam assist, and traffic sign recognition then as well. And so overall, when it comes to my final thoughts, I do absolutely love the redesign for the 2nd generation Hr V. I think it looks 1,000 times better than the previous generation. And quite honestly, because this is not a turbocharged engine, this should be just as reliable as the previous generation. I've seen so many of the previous generation HRVs go 300,000 miles. You can probably check them out on Auto Trader right now. They are incredibly reliable because of that naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, which is a very rare thing these days, quite honestly. LED headlights coming standard, that is brilliant at this price point, quite honestly. And you get automatic high beams as well. You usually never get that at this price point. So that is a huge safety feature and a huge convenience feature in itself. Not only that, I love the steering feel of the Hr V. If you compare that to like the Toyota Corolla Cross or the Kia Seltos, the competition basically, this thing has a much better steering feel in my personal opinion, much better weighted. It has a heavier feel to it. So kind of a more playful car to drive, I'll put it that way. As far as room for improvement goes, I feel like the rear passengers got a little bit shafted on this one because there's no rear ventilation, there's no rear charging ports, and there's no rear center armrest with cup holders. But other than that, this car is pretty darn good. I really like the Hr V overall. It's something I would consider, but I will say maybe for the next model year Honda, if you wanted to add that stuff for the rear passengers, at least as an option, that would be pretty darn cool. But anyways, that is about it for this one, you guys. Thank you so much for watching.